Hey all, ex-art student here. Today I'm going to paint. I decided to start with acrylic. It's been years since I've used it and I haven't used this canvas paper, but I thought it'd be fun to try. I wanted to make these sketches come to life. And I started out with a pencil sketch and filled it in with some acrylic. I really had this vision of this girl with flowy hair, everything was very light, but the main thing was that she's going to have moths around her eyes, kind of like she is light coming from her. It took me many layers. Maybe I'm just not patient. Maybe I should have gessoed the canvas paper. I don't know, a lot of what ifs. I really liked the sketch of the girl, but the layering of the paint and drying time, it just wasn't for me. Also, I couldn't figure out how to get rid of all these sketch marks, like the graphite. So I gave up on that and decided to do different canvas paper and try some watercolor, because in the past I've used watercolor on this paper and it turned out really well. So again, it's been many years, but I decided to try it. And as you can see, I was struggling with the watercolor. I think it's the paper again, maybe I should have gessoed, but I was having a hard time, and I eventually gave up on this painting, which really disappointed me. Part 3. I decided to use watercolor on regular sketch paper, and this was it. This is what made it much easier for me, and something clicked. The paper worked well with my paint, it all was flowing, and I felt inspired and like the piece was actually coming out somewhat decent. So if you couldn't tell, I really loved making these squiggly, curly wisps of hair. I wanted her to kind of be fairy-like and in the woods, because she's some mythical being that attracts moths to her eyes. I wanted her to be very fantasy-esque, her hair obviously not having gravity, and I also wanted the moths to be able to land on the hair and kind of float with it or lift it up as well. Obviously, still trying to experiment. Some things worked, some things didn't. I had the base layer of the yellow or the light blonde. Then I added in a little bit of brown to that yellow to add more dimension to the hair, more details, and to create a bit of contrast. I also used this brown to create a little bit of an outline, so it kind of worked as a shadow, but you didn't mistake the body or the face details for anything else. And now I'm adding the moths. Of course I wanted them to congregate around the eyes because that's how the sketch was like. I also wanted the moths to be flying around, so they were kind of like regular moths with the light bulb. Like you see some flying around the main light source, or some directly on it, but they're all just kind of fluttering near that light. It took me a while to think of what colors I wanted the moth. I chose brown because I feel like a lot of moths are brown. I originally was going to do like pink, but I feel like that would look too butterfly-esque, and I wanted it to clearly be moths. I don't know if I got that across in my painting with the details, but to me they're moths. Normally I'm not a pink person, but I thought the contrast of the pink would look really good with the neutrals and brown colors of the girl and the moth. I also kind of think this girl has some type of powerful femininity to her. After creating a successful piece, I decided to try doing the other sketch, the one with the girl facing forward. And I didn't go with any pencil this time either. I just kind of went for it. I wanted a front-facing girl, a little bit of shadow for detail, and crazy hair in the wind with all of her moth buddies. And if you couldn't tell, with the watercolor, I was finding my flow. I was able to swirl around, get the detail, and not be frustrated with losing ink, in quotations. Like, I had a flowing piece. I was able to drag the color out, didn't have to worry about layers much, and it actually did what I wanted it to. I learned how to use it. When I was in high school, watercolor was actually my medium. When I look back at my sketches, I don't know if I was that great at it, but now I think I am more comfortable with watercolor. I did really enjoy this brush too. Normally I usually work with one of those flat brushes that has an angle to it, but I decided to do a little thicker boy with a point at the top. As long as it had a point, it was easy to put on the details that I wanted, because you could go fat and then loosen up on the pressure and go thin. And that's exactly what I needed for all these hair swirls. So again, same concept, moths all around her eyes, and here I decided to add more detail to the antennae and make it a Luna moth. I'm definitely not the best with painting or with watercolors, or with brushes for that matter. I just kind of choose a brush that I could work with. After a while you get to know the tool that you're working with and what you can or can't do, what happens if you turn your wrist one way, if you glide the brush in another way. Obviously I was using the very, very tip of the brush to get those fine, fine details. I think because of the Luna moth and the practice I had, this painting was definitely the one that I favored. I just like the colors way better, and I like seeing the girl's details on her face as well. I think I just did it overall better, but I do love the hair swirls on the first pink painting. Here I'm going in with Prisma liners. I think I had a 5-point marker and a B marker. I always like doing little details with a medium that I'm more familiar with. Anything closer to a pencil, I enjoy to use way more. I think on my art journey this year, I definitely have to work on portraits as well as figures. I want to try different poses because, yes, my girl looks good, but I feel like a more interesting or dynamic pose would make the piece a lot better. And finally, I did this forest green as the background. I personally love it. I'm normally not a green person, but I think it goes well with the yellows, browns, and light greens. They all work together, and I think I had way more control of this because I had more paint this time in the background instead of making it watery watercolor. Now, I wanted to go back to both the paintings. My sister suggested that I do highlights on the hair, whether it was a lighter color blonde or some kind of purple gold. So I found this color changing paint and made that the highlight. I don't know if I did it well or if it ruined the painting, but I have pictures of both versions, so either way I think it's fun to experiment. And now the paintings are dry, let's take a look at those close-up shots. And there you have it, my 2 paintings that only came from 2 failures. I really hated the beginning of this process, but I'm really happy with how everything turned out. And I can't wait to play with watercolor again. I'm actually kind of excited now that I have some confidence in it. And now we're at the end. If you liked my stuff, check out my Instagram, TikTok, or Etsy. Like, comment, subscribe if you would like. Thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to see you next week. Thanks. Bye.